It's been about 7 years that I've slowly started to increase my protein intake, but it was in the last year or so that I really bumped up my total protein intake to over 100 grams per day. Now, before this, I had upped it to about 70 to 90 grams of protein per day, which is still on the higher side compared to a lot of people who are usually only consuming about 40 to 50 grams. And I was feeling pretty good, seeing decent results, but it wasn't until I upped my protein intake to 100 grams or more per day where I really started to see some major changes. So today I'm sharing the 9 major changes that I saw after eating over 100 grams of protein for over a year in today's video. My name's Autumn. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's nutrition human performance, and today's video is sponsored by Kettle and Fire. More on them in a bit. Okay, so the first major thing that I noticed, and it's probably why a lot of people start to eat more protein, and it's that I noticed body recomposition and fat loss. If you've been following my postpartum weight loss journey, then you know that protein has been really the cornerstone to my success. I ended up losing 20 pounds with only 0.2 pounds of that coming from muscle, which is like unheard of with traditional eat less, move more type of weight loss. Even just from a weight loss perspective, that's really what we're looking for. We're looking to reduce body fat, but also because it's more sustainable. By not losing muscle mass, it makes it so my metabolism was able to stay higher, so I didn't have to keep eating less and less and less in order to achieve my weight loss goals. My bones didn't suffer as a result, and I was able to feel strong and satiated during the whole weight loss process. And this entirely comes down to the combination of eating enough protein and using strength training. I focus on eating really high quality sources of protein like skyr, which is similar to Greek yogurt, but actually even higher in protein than Greek yogurt. But I have cottage cheese, my zero sugar protein powder, which I would make protein waffles with, or protein smoothies, so good. And then of course I would have like chicken and tuna and beef and a little bit of salmon here and there when I could get myself to sneak it in. By getting between 100 to sometimes even 130 grams of protein in a day, it made achieving those postpartum weight loss goals so much easier and sustainable. Okay, the second thing I noticed is that my skin cleared up a lot. Now you can go back to my earlier videos like 6 years ago when I was eating about 70 grams of protein per day, and I didn't have like a ton of breakouts, but I would get breakouts, especially like around my chin right here, which was always super frustrating to me because I ate very well. I didn't eat sugar. I didn't really eat refined carbohydrates. So it was really odd to me that I was still experiencing breakouts. But then once I significantly upped my protein intake, I noticed that I just don't get breakouts anymore. Like you've probably seen in my last few years of videos, I don't really get breakouts that much. If I do, it's probably just because I had like a lot of sugar after some type of holiday, and that was the result. In fact, I actually noticed much more clear skin even when I just upped my protein to about 80 to 90 grams per day. And especially when I focus on high quality sources that were high diaz sources, which are more digestible and more absorbable, which the quality of protein really matters. I've done a video on this. You can check it out linked right up here. Okay, the third thing that changed is that my perspective of a meal completely changed. Back earlier, especially in college when I ate significantly less protein, it used to be whatever veggies I wanted and then maybe like sprinkle in some protein here and there. But now I consider what protein I want. Is it going to be lamb? Is it going to be fish? Is it chicken or beef? And then I figure out how to make a meal around that or out of that. So if it's ground beef, I might be making some type of bunless burgers or meatballs or some type of stir fry. Or if it's chicken, I might be grilling chicken or making some type of lettuce wrap. Whatever it is, I first think of what I want to do with my protein, and then I add in the vegetable component as well. So I'm still getting high quality sources of veggies and fiber and fats. I just make sure I prioritize my protein first, which that actually leads me to today's sponsor, Kettle and Fire. Kettle and Fire, if you aren't familiar with them, are an amazing high quality bone broth company. They're made from grass-fed bones that have been slowly simmered to make sure that they can pull out as much collagen as possible. So collagen is a type of protein, and it works really well when you also combine it with other complete sources of protein. So you can think of like making bone broth in a chili with ground beef or making some type of stew. Bone broth helps to bump up the collagen, which helps to make us even more full and satisfied from our meals so that we don't get hungry or experience cravings in between meals, which is really supportive of a weight loss or wellness goal. Now you can totally make bone broth at home, and if you have the time to do it, fantastic. But if you're like me and you're a new mom, or you just don't really have time to slowly simmer grass-fed bones for multiple hours, then having Kettle and Fire in your pantry makes it so easy to add a high quality source of whole food collagen into pretty much any meal. I love using their original chicken or beef bone broth in things like my soups or stews or chilies, or even in the base of a sauce to help significantly bump up the overall collagen content of the meal. And Kettle and Fire is super generous, and they're offering my community 20% off your bone broth purchases when you use code AUTUMNBAITS at checkout. So make sure that you stock up, don't miss out on this discount, and I'll have it linked down in the description below. Okay, the fourth thing that I noticed noticed is that I was significantly less hungry. Protein raises the satiety hormone peptide YY, which literally when it's high, it tells our brain that we're full, we're satisfied, and we don't need to eat. Now, I was a chronic snacker before, especially like in college and early adulthood. I was never satisfied for my food. I was always hungry, or at least always that like slightly hungry where you feel that you need to just keep eating something, which just really contributed to something else that I experienced later. I'll get to that in just a second. And I thought I was just one of those people that always needed to eat. Turns out I just was not eating enough protein, because it is absolutely mind-boggling how quickly protein really sets in and just stops hunger in its tracks. This is something when I meet with clients and we up their protein intake to what they actually need, they always ask me like, how long will this actually take to set in? How long will it take for me to not feel hungry anymore? Is it gonna take like a couple days, couple weeks? Literally same day. If you're actually getting enough protein, your hunger level should significantly decrease, which also impacts the fifth thing I experienced, which is that I had significantly less sugar cravings. Typically, if somebody's always hungry, they usually also have some type of sugar cravings. These go really hand in hand, and it's because our body's just seeking out some type of fast, quick energy source since we did not get enough at the previous meal to feel satisfied. And sugar is that thing that will provide a very fast source of energy. So I would always have things like dates or dried mango, or maybe some chips and salsa or chips and guacamole, which starch cravings and sugar cravings kind of go hand in hand since starch does break down into sugar. But once my hunger was addressed, my body didn't need that fast source of energy, and I just no longer crave those snacky, sugary foods. Okay, the sixth thing that I experienced is that I felt so much stronger at the gym. Oh my gosh, I've been exercising my entire life to some degree. I've done triathlons, marathons, half marathons. I've done high intensity interval training. And now more recently, I'm focused on strength training. And when I was eating a little bit less protein, like that 80, 90 grams per day, which is still higher, but not that 100 plus, I noticed that I would feel good after my workouts, but I wasn't necessarily getting stronger, especially in my upper body where I am just historically a little bit weaker. My lower body, I could throw on weights on the deadlift and just keep going up, but my upper body needed a lot more support. I felt like I was just plateaued at that like 7.5 pound dumbbell. If I ever tried to go up any higher, then I would get shoulder pain and it just would knock me out for a couple of days or maybe even a couple of weeks. But once I upped the protein intake, now I have been significantly upping my weight level, especially for my upper body, and actually feeling strong and confident with it and not like I'm getting injured. It might not sound like a huge jump, but now I'm up to 15-pound dumbbells from those 7.5. So literally doubling the amount of weight that I can lift. And I'm continuing to slowly increase that amount even further. Okay, the seventh thing I experience is that I don't get GI issues. Now I'm throwing this in because a lot of people think that if you eat more protein, then you're going to experience a lot of constipation. I sort of expected this to happen as I increased my protein intake, and I did not experience that. Everything was still very normal. Now the reason why I think this is because I still ate high quality sources of fat and fiber, and I wasn't just purely eating really lean sources of protein, like just lean chicken breast or lean turkey. I was eating things like ground beef, tuna, salmon, various dairy products, and then of course still having some of those more lean sources of protein like chicken and turkey. So I was getting a good mix, and I wasn't just sticking to like very low fat during this. I was still eating the high quality sources of fat and fiber and low to medium glycemic load veggies and fruits. The problem can come in when someone really increases their protein intake from purely lean sources. This is where I've seen that can cause constipation. So thankfully, because I still stuck to my protein, fat, and fiber approach that I talk about on my channel, in my programs, in my recipes, in my cookbooks, I didn't experience any of those GI issues. Okay, the eighth is that it helped to decrease my anxiety even further. Now I've had a history of anxiety. I've really done a lot to help lower it, but getting enough protein was a huge important factor for me because it helped to stabilize my blood sugar levels. With those stable blood sugar levels, I wasn't getting those blood sugar crashes, which can increase the stress hormone cortisol and cause more of those feelings of anxiety. But a theory I have is that I was also missing out on some nutrients that are primarily found in animal-based sources of protein, particularly things like vitamin B12 and choline and vitamin K2. Now that's just a theory of mine, but those are a couple of reasons why I think having more of the protein really did help to balance out my anxiety levels. Okay, the ninth thing that changed is that I started to eat and appreciate a lot more dairy products. Now growing up, I really did not even touch dairy products. Maybe I had a little bit of cheese, had some butter, but my family grew up vegetarian and they didn't really like dairy, so I ate more so eggs. And I always just assumed that dairy products cause things like acne and bloating and GI issues, so I kind of avoided it. But now I eat a lot of different sources of dairy dairy, especially those that are fermented or very low in lactose. So I have things like cottage cheese and skyr or Greek yogurt. Sometimes I'll make my homemade Greek yogurt. Of course, my zero sugar, 100% whey protein isolate. And I didn't experience any of those issues of breakouts or bloating. And dairy is an amazing source of protein, but it also has other great health perks that aren't really talked about as often. Probably one of the biggest and one of my favorite being that it's a great source of vitamin K2, especially if it's a fermented dairy product. And vitamin K2 is something so many people are lacking, and it's really important for bone and heart health because it helps you take calcium out of the arteries and into the bones. Therefore, that vitamin K2 can be a really crucial component of helping to prevent calcification of the arteries. And then of course, fermented dairy products typically will have the live cultures that act as a probiotic, and it's a really high quality source of protein. Now, dairy still can be a problem for me if I'm eating it from sources that also are really high in lactose and high in sugar. So you can think of non-fermented dairy products with added sugar like ice cream. So I just stay away from those, and I have more of the low lactose fermented dairy products, and they do amazing things for me and my body. Plus they just taste so great. And one of my favorite forms of dairy is cottage cheese. I've been using it so much. So if you want to check out 3 ways that you can use cottage cheese, you can check it out with this video next. Also, if you're new to my channel and you love this science-backed information, make sure you subscribe right here. I'm out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video.